Oh, hey, sorry. I was caught in a reflection. Speaking of which, why don't we talk a little bit about reflection reports? So, you may have heard the statement that we don't learn from experience, but we learn from reflecting on our experience. And there's a lot of truth to that. We go through our lives, we make our decisions, on a day to day basis, oftentimes without thinking of it. We're in the heat of the moment, pressure's on, we need to choose something, and so we respond, and then we move on with our lives. Now, that's great for the most part. Sometimes our decisions are amazing and we have great outcomes from them, but sometimes our decisions are just good enough to get us by. Every once in a while, our decisions create future problems that we need to deal with. But if you don't stop to think about your decision-making process, if you don't stop to think about the actions that you take, you never really learn which of your decisions are having a good outcome and which ones are causing problems. And so reflection reports, or any kind of reflection activity, is an opportunity, or it's a discipline where you take time in your day and in your week to think about some of the choices that you're making and to understand what's driving those choices. And with that reflection, you can start to understand a little bit about how do you behave? How do you behave under pressure? Why do you make the choices that you make? And that gives you insights that allow you to make better choices in the future, and you can improve your performance that way. So these reflection activities are very powerful tools to help us become better at the things we do, become a better, spouse, a better parent, a better coworker, a better student, whatever. Right? So there's a reflection assignment in this class. And so there are instructions for that in the course guide, but I wanted to just take a minute just to give you a little bit of a high overview of these reflection reports here. So I'm going to talk about what reflection reports are. I've talked a little bit about why we do them. They help us make better decisions. And I want to talk a little bit about how do we do them. And I'm going to close up on what are the types of things that we might reflect on. What are some subjects that we might choose to make the topic of our reflection activities, right? So reflection reports, what are they? They are reports, they are journals that are a result of our reflection activities. So we go through our lives, we make choices, things happen, and then we take time out of our days or out of our weeks to just sit back and be a little bit thoughtful and reflect on what did we do and why did we do it. As I mentioned before in the introduction, we do this because this helps us gain insights into the things that are driving us and helps us make better decisions. So what does it actually mean to do a reflection? How do you actually do a reflection effectively so that you can actually get something out of it? So you'll see in the instructions I have some tips for that, but really what we want to do is during your week, whenever events happen, when there's events that happen to you, so for example, a customer got irate at you because of some problem that you made, or if there's a decision you made, so you decided to have this conversation and say this thing to a coworker versus something else, or if you just witnessed an event that kind of stuck with you. So, maybe one of your coworkers yelled at another one of your coworkers and you didn't do anything about that, but it stuck with you, right? So whenever these types of events happen, you take a moment later on that day or later on that week, as close as possible to the moment as you can, and you want to reflect on certain things. You want to describe what that event was, and you want to think through things like what were the decisions that you made, what actions did you take, and what was your rationale for taking those actions? Why did you act the way that you acted? And when you're evaluating why did you act the way that you act, you want to think about things like, what were the values that were driving you at the time? What was it that you were trying to achieve? So remember, values are the ends that we feel are worth achieving and the means we feel are appropriate to achieve them. So if we made decisions, if we took actions, usually there's some values that were driving that. And so let's try to get some insight around what value was active in me in that moment that was driving my decisions. Another really important thing to think about when you're reflecting is what was happening to you emotionally. What were you feeling? Were you angry? Were you nervous? Were you happy? Were you sad? We often ignore this, but here's the thing. our emotions drive our decision makings. We behave differently when we're feeling emotions than we do when we're not feeling emotions. And so our emotions impact our behaviors. And so when we're having these reflections, we want to think about what were we feeling at the time that this happened, and what impact did that feeling have on the choices that I made. And you want to get some insight into that. And so when you're doing your journaling, you want to record that. You want to record these types of thoughts. And then you want to take stock of whether you think you made a good decision. Is there something better that you could have done? Things like that, right? And so you do this regularly. You do these journals regularly, several times a week, whenever these types of events happen, right? And then every so often, what you want to do, and in this course, in the instructions, you'll see this is built into the assignment. Every once in a while, what you want to do is you want to sort of step back and just review your entries for the previous few weeks, maybe the previous few months, depends on your situation. And you want to try to identify what are some trends that you see happening. Do you make the same types of bad choices again and again and again? Do you see that you respond a certain way to certain emotional situations? And you try to look for trends, and you try to look for long-term consequences of some of the choices that you've made. In this class, you are going to be handing in a report summarizing some of these trends that you see. What are some of these events that are going on in your life, and how do you make decisions? And are you happy with that? What behavioral patterns do you see in yourself? And from that, you might come up with some thoughts of changes that you might want to make in the future, right? And so that, in a nutshell, is what you do with reflection reports. And you make this a part of your daily practice. And what you'll find over time is over time, you'll start to see some unique insights into your own behaviors. And those insights will give you the ability to proactively start to make some different choices. When you recognize that, I'm in this type of a situation again, and when I'm in this type of a situation, I want to do this, you have the insight that allows you to have some choice over that. This time, I'm going to make a different choice, right? And so we can improve our performance that way, right? So some of the questions that will often be asked, though, is like, what should I write my reflection report on? Like, what should I actually have as the focus of my reflection report? And the true answer is whatever is important to you, right? That doesn't necessarily give you a lot of guidance, though, especially if you're new. If you haven't done a lot of reflection reports, maybe you need a little bit of guidance. So some examples of things that students might focus their reflection reports on include things like, if you are in student teams and you're always struggling with your student teams, or they're a source of stress, you might write a reflection report, or you might focus your reflection report on your performance and your behaviors in student teams. If you're at work and you're gunning for a promotion, or if you've just gotten a new promotion and you want to make sure that you're performing well in it, you might focus your reflection report on actions that you're doing at work, and so on, right? So those are some examples of things you might focus your reflection report on. You could also just look at it, as a student in general. Are you managing your time well? In your relationships, are you managing your relationships well, and so on. So focus, pick something in your life that you want to improve on, or that might be a source of stress. It's something that you struggle with and you want to improve on, and focus your reflection report on that. And you'll find, after doing this practice for several weeks or several months, you'll find that you will begin to gain really wonderful insights into into actions you can take to improve your performance in those areas. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview. If you ever have any questions, you're always free to email me. Otherwise, happy reflecting. I prefer to do my reflections with a cup of coffee.